Hello, I'm Ron Franklin for Bassmaster's Classic Yearbook. When we think of fishing, images of the great outdoors illuminate our minds, and the urge to get away from it all, if only for a day, is overpowering. Professional fishing adds the element of competition to that mental picture. And over the years, the sport has kept the competition in tranquil, out-of-the-way venues. That all changed in 2000 when BASS announced that the Classic would be held in the windy waters off Chicago.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Burnham Park on the banks of beautiful Lake Michigan for the 2000 Bassmasters Classic.
I'm sure that a lot of people did a double take when they heard that the Bassmasters Classic was going to be held in Chicago.
Chicago doesn't sound like a very fun place to fish, but it's the Bassmasters Classic, and I'll go wherever I have to go to fish it.
It was an exceptional event in the sense that you know, you were in such a major city.
You could go through a lock from Lake Michigan into the Chicago River, and you could literally go through downtown Chicago.
When you look up, and there would be the Sears Tower, and you look up, you almost fall over backwards looking straight up at it there.
And people would give you the strangest looks. You know, they'd be walking over bridges and things like that and looking at you and seeing you fishing. I mean, because they just don't think of fishing there, obviously.
Here I am trying to win a Bassmasters Classic, and here these people are in the hustle and bustle of 9 to 5 corporate world.
If you went down that Calumet River, that was really strange. I mean, you're going right through the middle of industrial Chicago. It was the smelliest area I've ever fished. This river is lined with these industrial plants and noisy. You need earplugs just to fish. And you go around this little corner and there's a ship coming right at you. I mean, a full-blown ocean-going ship coming right down the pike at you, and you gotta get out of the way.
The city of Chicago wanted to prove and to show off that how far they've come with the quality of the water and the fishing around that area.
There was a question as to how good the fishing was going to be in Chicago. I think everyone acknowledged that.
I'd kind of like to forget about Chicago myself because it's, you know, it was just a tough tournament.
Chicago was a beautiful city, great place to go, but it was a very tough Classic.
Probably the best memory I have of the Chicago Classic is the food. The best pizza there is, you can say what you want about different places, but the best pizza there is in Chicago.
There was so many areas that were off limits, and it really, really hindered us as fishermen, our ability to catch nice stringers.
The Classic in Chicago was probably the hardest Classic I've ever fished because I didn't know whether I was legal or not all the time I was there.
All these boundaries, these imaginary boundaries that we had to have for the tournament of where you could and couldn't fish, and you had to kind of guess over there and over there.
You could fish from like the end of this brick wall to this first dock, then you might have a 200-yard stretch that was off limits. You couldn't cast towards any moored boat.
Well, they don't realize what a bass fisherman does. You know, we put a bait within an inch of where we want it to go.
You know, I've got a book with off-limits areas. I can't throw at a dock. Docks where bass live.
They put all the good stuff off limits. So you'd have this little strip over here where there was nothing, and you could fish that, but you couldn't fish over there where all the good stuff was.
Well, I'll tell you what happened, too, by having it in Chicago. Sports editors at newspapers and at television stations throughout the country, suddenly with them, the sport had a whole new type of credibility.
Bass fishing had never been around that part of the country before as far as mass media.
We had Paul Harvey talking on the radio in advance of the Bassmasters Classic because Paul was getting his information from the Chicago Sun-Times.
That Chicago dateline, the fact that the weigh-ins are held in Soldier Field, told a lot of these media types that, hey, this sport is a big league sport after all.
Chicago Tribune went to South Carolina to do a feature. I'll never forget Sue Ellen Christian going to Davy Heights' home, spending time with the family and doing a feature on him getting all of his tackle ready in his garage.
The media really was converted. They were really sold on the professional bass fishing. They've continued to give us good coverage over the years since then.
If the mountain wasn't going to come to bass, bass was going to go to the mountain, and it was an incredible opportunity to expose people to a terrific sport.
Yes, Chicago was probably the most unusual place to go for the Bassmasters Classic, but that has nothing to do with the fishery. The fishery is the same every classic. It doesn't matter whether we catch them or not. Somebody's going to catch more than the rest of us.
The 2000 Bassmasters Classic Yearbook is brought to you by Busch Beer, Chevy Trucks, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road, and Triton, a new breed of fishing boats by Earl Bentz.
Lake Michigan is just like the rest of the Great Lakes, where the main lake itself tends to have more and bigger smallmouth bass than the backwaters and the rivers.
There's two ways to go. You either go largemouth fishing or you go smallmouth fishing. I chose to go smallmouth fishing out in the lake and take my chances.
The perfect classic conditions would have been a good stable week before with mild winds, 5 to 10 mile an hour, and good sunshine.
Out of all the classics I've been to, that classic was the one where the weather dictated the tactics more than any classic I can remember.
Anyone who's been on Lake Michigan has seen it go from flat calm to downright nasty in a matter of minutes.
Couldn't get out there and work those shoals and humps in Lake Michigan on account of the wind, and that's what really hurt the guys that were fishing the smallmouth.
I knew if we got a little bit of wind, everybody would go after the largemouth in protected areas.
Everybody got real crowded into those areas, and it made it tough to, tough to compete.
The wind and rough water not only made it tough to navigate to the protected areas, it also made it wet, which sometimes posed a problem with self-inflating life jackets.
We all come into the boat basin every afternoon for weigh-in, and everybody's hanging out. And we got these new life jackets, and it was pretty funny. I come up to Rick Glenn, I said, "What happens?" He said, "Man, I thought something grabbed me."
And the next thing I know, I've got this jacket inflated around my neck.
The hands of God just reach out and snatch you by the chest, and I laughed so hard about that.
1 year removed from back surgery, Shaw Grigsby was the 2000 season's top money winner, making him the newest member of the Bassmaster Tour's Elite Millionaires Club. Quite a feat when you consider the schedule Shaw keeps.
Shaw Grigsby is one of the best fishermen never to have won the Bassmasters Classic. Chased it up to the surface. I did unbelievable.
He probably won't describe himself this way, but it's just my observation. He's an angler that's caught between two professions.
TV show host from Gainesville, Florida, Shaw Grigsby.
Look at the history of the pros who have their own TV show. Their success on the tournament trail diminishes during the time they're doing that show.
He won 2 events that season. And how in the world somebody can carry that schedule?
It was a tough time because not only was I doing my own show, but I was doing, Bassmaster Television with Fish, which was a blast. He's such a nutcase. I love working with fishermen.
Shaw is one of the most likable anglers in fishing. Always has been and always will be.
Shaw Grigsby, to me, is the best sight fisherman in the world. There's no doubt he's got eyes like an eagle.
You just ain't gonna beat him. He's got magic eyes, eagle eyes.
Well, sight fishing actually means being able to catch fish when you can see them. And there are certain times of the year, certain lakes, certain conditions that lend itself to sight fishing.
It was definitely a spawning, bedding kind of season, and when that's on, there's no one greater than Shaw Grigsby.
Woo! That's $100 grand right there, buddy.
In 2000, when I won those tournaments back-to-back, to me it was nice to have that happen. I know I'd had some real cold times, and the times that you don't do well in a tournament are the times when you really have to analyze and you have to really dig deep and pull something positive out of that. But when you're hot, and it's great.
Shaw's momentum carried him to Chicago, where he made a run at the Bassmasters Classic title.
In that tournament, with it being a tough tournament and the fish I had caught, and I think I was in second going into the final day, I knew I could win that tournament.
That might have been his classic if the wind had laid down just a little bit, because when it comes to catching smallmouth, he's a good smallmouth fisherman. When it comes to catching fish that he can see, he might be the best in the country.
I found this little shoal offshore, and it was loaded with smallmouth and had some really nice ones, some 3 and 4 pounders on it, and I'm just catching them on a tube.
I think the wind hurt him more than anything. You know, he had a couple spots, and the wind just, it got too bad for him to fish.
Because all of a sudden there's just big waves, and all of a sudden you hear this, and here come this wave breaking over you, and you go, man, surf's up. And when it finally got to that point, you couldn't stay out there any longer.
But he was smart enough to go back to a second plan of getting inside the marinas and stuff and picking out some bass like that to finish third.
You know, that's what you have to do. You have to get out of the main lake and go to a backup pattern.
That's the difference in me and him. I'd probably die trying, but, you know, if I'm leading the Bassmasters Classic, I'm going to get back there, one way or the other.
Mark Risk, oh boy, I got stories forever of Mark Risk.
Me and Skeet have been friends for years and years. I've known Skeet longer than anybody else in the fishing industry. We basically cut our teeth together on bass fishing. You know, we learned a lot together.
I remember in Clear Lake, California, at the town Lakeport, he had a little outboard motor repair shop.
And I actually lived in the shop, and Skeet used to come up and stay with me all the time.
People just thought we were just weird. We were living in this little boat repair shop.
Sowed a lot of wild oats together and did a lot of partying in our younger days.
So yeah, we used to go run around, chase different things together and try and catch fish. And
it's funny that our careers have run so parallel.
He had an old Skeeter bass boat. And it was like an old fish and ski, but he converted it over.
We both had old Skeeters at that time.
But I swear I've never been in a bass boat that felt like a lowrider. Your butt could have been about 2 or 3 inches off the actual water line, the bottom of the boat. You're trying to look up over the console and like, hey man, where are we going?
But I didn't name myself after my boat like Skeet did, so.
Mark Risk fished his first Bassmasters Classic in 1999. And with a year's experience under his belt, he arrived at the 2000 Classic in Chicago with a plan and a little finesse technique that had never been a factor in the event's 29-year history.
With 2 fishermen like Wu and Shaw ahead of you going into the 3rd day, it's pretty tough to imagine that either one of them might stumble. All I can do is go out and do my part and catch what I can and hope for the best.
Taking into account that it was going to be, you know, real tough fishing, a lot of pressure, a lot of people fishing the same spot. So I knew the drop shot technique was going to be a real viable technique in that tournament.
Even in the most important event of his career, he allowed himself to change to a technique he really wasn't proficient at.
To this day, I mean, I think for Mark drop shotting at the Classic that year, it worked great for him that week. But if he still has an option, he's going to throw the drop shot rod away.
That was the first Classic where the drop shot rig came into play, and it's one of the best finesse techniques that we have.
It was really big in Japan, and that's where I learned it from, Japanese anglers.
I have a weight with a swivel on the bottom, and I have a little offset hook with the Lake Police drop shot bait, and all I have to do is just throw in the bag and start shaking, dragging.
The problem with this technique, as far as I'm concerned, and me not liking to use it, is that it's a light line technique, which requires the use of a spinning rod, and I hate spinning rods.
But actually, it was a good decision. I know I've talked to him. I remember talking about the Classic, and he didn't know much about drop shotting, but he became damn good at it damn quick.
I've come to the realization over the years of tournament fishing that I do what I have to do well, or you go hungry.
In Wu Dave's 25 years on the Pro Tour, he had qualified for the Bassmasters Classic 15 times. But beyond Wu's endurance in the sport of bass fishing, It is his friendly and compassionate nature that has made him a perennial favorite among fans and peers alike.
Woo is a very different person in the fact that, I mean, he's real laid back, and he's the happiest guy that you'll ever meet.
Shake, 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 shake your booty. When he gets on the water, he is a dynamo. It's almost like there's a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde transformation.
Woo will go out of his way to take the shirt off his back and help you if you need something done. I mean, he's a very gracious individual.
Him and his wife, Patty, both. I mean, he'll do anything for you. I mean, Woo does a lot for a lot of people. You know, the Super Kids are a big program for them.
Well, the Super Kids are a group of mentally and physically challenged adults.
We have one, Big Donnie's his name. He's about 6'5", but he's probably only about 10 or 12 in his mind. And when he knows Woo's going to be gone somewhere, he tells us that he'll say, Patty, I'm going to pray to God. He's got a real deep voice, and he'll go, I'm going to pray to God for Woo.
He's helped him get a bus. I mean, he's given him a lot of his own prize money.
I've been up and attended 2 of his tournaments with the Winston Cup drivers, and it's gotten to be so big they've had to move it out of his house.
These NASCAR guys, they think they're fishing the Bassmasters Classic.
They'd rather get that trophy than $1 million check. You know, it means a lot to them, and they're all pumped up. You wouldn't think somebody like Jack Roush would show up for a little thing like that.
Jack Roush won it last year, and he was just tickled pink. He thought that was the greatest thing.
Woo's Super Kids have benefited quite a bit from it.
It's just my best project I've ever had.
6 of Woo's 15 classic appearances have resulted in top 5 finishes, including a second-place finish to Guido Hibden on his home water, the James River, in 1988. Woo went into the 2000 Classic without high expectations, but that quickly changed.
Woo Dames was a man among boys in that tournament. I mean, he had a great spot.
Woo just outsmarted us all, and basically conditions prevailed for him.
And it turns out Woo, just plinking along the rocks, you know, catches them.
The 2000 Bassmasters Classic Yearbook is brought to you by Chevy Trucks, the most dependable, longest-lasting trucks on the road. Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. And Berkeley, catch more fish.
Woo was the only one that really braved it. You know, you can see the pictures of his boat and those huge waves and his trolling motors coming out of the water and the bows crashing down and splashing everywhere. But he got behind a little break wall and found a place where not only was there a school of fish, but it was protected enough from the wind.
Woo fished a place that everyone else had found, but Woo was smart enough to get there and hang on to it.
Sometimes the obvious places go overlooked, and that's what happened here.
The technique that he was using fit his preference. He loves to fish light line on spinning rods, and he was dragging a tube around.
You know, here he is, all of a sudden you've gone from thinking, oh, things look bad, to all of a sudden you're leading it after 2 days. So you've gone like this, like the Dow Jones goes, I reckon.
You know, I can't imagine old Woo out here doing the same deal with this size fish with 6-pound strand. I got 10-pound green, and
to get him to bite, he had to use, 6-pound test line and, spinning rod, and it's hard to control those big smallmouths that way. And
I hook a good one, and it's about a 3.5 pounder. And I play it, and I play it, and I play it, and I play it, and all of a sudden the hook comes out of his mouth.
Mentally, I think that was pretty tough, in those situations where you see that 3-pounder on and he gets off and you think, oh boy, you know how hard it is to get one like that to bite.
Boy, I really just felt dejected. There goes the classic right there.
This was a tournament that was very close because Woo did struggle the last day.
And I still, you know, coming into the weigh-in line, I really didn't have any idea that it was going to be that close until I started hearing some of the what we call dock talk, when all the fishermen start talking.
Well, after we get out and everything, they say, oh, he can't catch it, he can't catch it. Don't worry about it, you know. Well, I'm worried more than ever now.
And then I started hearing the rumor that Woo only had like 3 fish. So then it started, you know, then the wheels start turning and you start thinking, yeah, I might really have a shot at this thing.
Ounces can separate first and second. So when you've got the last 4 or 5 guys coming in at the Classic, you never know what's going to happen.
Steve Price did come up to me and he told me, he said, Patty, do you bite your fingernails? And I said, no. And he goes, you better start.
But everybody wanted Woo to win that thing. And he had been doing so well throughout the week and he had been plastered all over television.
And Woo said he thought to himself, oh Lord, please. It's not that I don't want to finish second, but just let me win this one once. Just let me win it.
The final weigh-in was one of those that's, you know, it was exciting, but really disappointing too.
We got to have 7-14. Let's see what we got. We got 5 alive.
10-1.
10 pounds out. Woo!
10 pounds. As soon as you said that, I knew it didn't make no difference how many ounces it was.
4 bass, folks. 4 bass coming to the scales. Woo Daves needs 5 pounds and 7 ounces. Watch the weight for Woo Dave. 6 pounds, 8 ounces. There's your champion. Woo! Champion. He did it.
Second place at the Classic is probably the worst place you could ever finish second place.
No matter what you do and record you have and everything, it's nothing, again, compared to me to winning the Classic.
Woo said, I can't believe I won this thing. And I said, I can't either. So it was just like a, you know, pinch me. I can't believe it. You really did win it.
It was great to see Woo win. When Woo was crowned the Classic champion, you could see that almost sigh of relief. You know, he's been after it so long.
And that was absolutely fantastic because Woo had been through the battle and he had fought the seas.
Woo's a great guy, and he's paid his dues. Lord knows he's paid his dues in this sport.
You know, Woo Daves is 54 years old, and if there was one tournament that would take him through the rest of his career, it was winning the Bassmasters Classic.
It was a reminder that the boys that had been around the game for a while could still catch fish and should be considered a threat.
He's been there as a rookie, and he's been there as the old man, and I guess there's something to be said for age and wisdom and treachery over youth and exuberance, I guess. That's one of the more phenomenal performances in the Classic history, I think.
A quarter of a century after competing in his first Bassmasters Classic, Woo Daves, at age 54, became the oldest angler in history to win the event. Earning bass fishing's world title has given Woo the opportunity to expand his interest. Michael Jordan, watch out. Woo has designed his own line of footwear specifically geared toward fishing. The new products are called, what else? Woo Shoes. For Bassmasters Classic Yearbook, I'm Ron Franklin.